it is only the beginning, is really Robert Mondavi.
This is probably, to me, one of the greatest stories and most memorable events of my career. To have the opportunity to share this great piece of art and this story with everyone here.
Well, it came about sort of like sometimes incidentals happen. I was having dinner with Richard Sands at Red's.
I remember that dinner at Red's, and
we were discussing the 100th anniversary of Robert Mondavi. It was posthumous because he'd been gone for 5 years, but still a 100th anniversary for Robert Mondavi was very important.
I said to Margaret, well, Margaret, what is it that you would really like? What do you think we should do for the 100th birthday?
And I said, I would have made a sculpture of Robert Mondavi, life-size, so maybe a third bigger, to put in front of the winery. And he said,
as I recall, I said, well, Margaret, that sounds like a very good idea.
You got it. Do it. Wasn't that the most wonderful thing? I just then started to work on this idea. And I was then invited to go to fabulous Rochester, New York, whom I've never been, and in the meantime liked very much. A beautiful place. It was really an adventure. And then the next day, Richard took me to the university, and we went to the art department, and we met Mr. Urso. And we saw some work that he'd done, and he also took us to his studio.
We fold it up into place and we weld it, and then we have to hammer this smooth.
Len had made a mock-up of some metal head, so we had some kind of a idea that was more than just a sketch.
When Richard called me, I told him I'd think about it. I didn't call him for 8 weeks because I thought he'll forget about this.
To be quite honest, we almost forgot about Len. Except he called us up one day and said,
I have an idea. And he said, great, I'll meet you in 2 weeks. And I only had an idea that I would consider to pursue it more strongly. So I had 2 weeks to put together this shape. And so that's when I struggled with the model.
He comes in with his head, okay? And he puts his head on top of the box, and it's beautiful. It exudes emotion and passion that at the end of the day, we got sold on and that Margaret got sold on.
And he said, you know, I'm coming from another point. I would like just to have an image of Robert Mondavi, sort of like a facial sketch in sculpture. Both Richard and I had this feeling, this is new, this is something different. And I said, for me, this is it. And he said, for me too. And as we all kind of agreed that Robert's great passion, his great focus about that came out of his head. So why not a facial sculpture of Robert Mondavi? And of course, we had to also bring Len to the Robert Mondavi Winery, show him videos, pictures, and so that he would kind of get a little personal feeling for an extraordinary person.
Coming out to California and talking to everyone who had known him more intimately was very helpful. And I heard some words that were words that I was also seeking in the sculpture. I thought, okay. And that has actually offered a considerable amount of support for me in making this image.
And now at the winery, we were also concerned with site. Where are we going to put this facial sculpture? We're going to have to move a few things, but I think we found a spot. And there too, it was complete agreement. Yes, here it should go.
Margaret was a huge influence. The thing I like about Margaret is that she has the feel for things. And when we walked through the winery, and the discussions I had with her was that she trusted instinct. She was approaching it holistically, and that was very encouraging. Margaret has an energy that is very distinct.
I just started to make a menu, and then I thought, oh, why not paint something on it, you know? And this is the copia board. Remember copia? Yes. And this is the Oxbow School, which of course is very involved too. I did go to art school when I was a young girl or a woman in Switzerland, and of course at that time we painted in oil. My being in watercolor right now has some practical reasons. One, at my stage in life, it is hard to carry an easel around and a box of oil paints, you know. Watercolor is so easy. And then I like the challenge because watercolor is kind of unforgiving. But with watercolor, once you start painting, you're pretty much stuck. It's there, you know. And I have always got to have a life subject. I have to have flower, I have to have fruit, I have to have a landscape, I have to have a face, I have to have something to do. Bacchus is kind of my signature. Bacchus is the god of wine, and I just transformed the old ugly Bacchus in a young little Bacchus that jumps of joy because he found a glass of wine that he likes, you know. And I paint him on posters for the summer festival, on T-shirts, and sometimes with my signature goes Little Bacchus Dancing.
Richard, he's actually very tactile. When he first came in to see the sculpture the first day when it was in the studio, he became very physical. I mean, he embracing it and standing near it and leaning on it was very tactile.
So I actually started my formal woodworking practice when I was about 20 years old, and I started by making furniture. And after I married Jennifer, she said, "Can you build me this?" And it was an armoire. And so I said, "Sure." And I took my tools, put them in the basement, and built an armoire. And she said, "Wow, that's great," except the fact that the sawdust went throughout the house. So she decided she was going to build me a shop. And that's when I started sculpting. And I continued to make furniture, mostly big things, big tables. I like making big tables. I made about 10 big dining room or conference room tables in my life. And then I got the idea that what I really wanted to do was turn the wood. You have to be 100% in the moment, focusing on where that tip of that blade is, what's going on in the wood, and you gotta have some rigidity and strength, but you have to be at the same time fluid because there's forces working with you and against you. And it's the concentration, though, that is so rewarding because it really takes you away from everything. Your mind is empty. You're totally focused on your hands and the wood. So this was turned as one log and split into pieces and then mounted so that you can rotate each of the pieces. And so It really is one. The three pieces would fit together, but it's also, they're individuals. That's why I called it the Three Sisters, because it's a family. It's quite unusual.
I never chose the head chose me. I started out with an abstract image. And then I thought, well, I had to look at anatomy and I had to break it down, but I didn't want to just make an anatomically correct engineer his face. But then again, his face changes. It's longer, it's more ovoid, it has more creases and shows the challenges and the struggles. I felt that he had to be in his prime. And the choice behind that was there's a certain timelessness when you create a sculpture that has symbolic value. And that was an important goal and objective, and that has been a huge struggle. I mean, it's just been, because he changes. I come in one day and I see him differently, and then the sculpture projects something different, so it's the challenge. And then I'm the one who has to take this material and shape it up into the image, and so I have to own it or own up to that challenge, and that kind of, you know, raises the hairs in the back of my neck occasionally, because I'm thinking, like, what the hell did I get into? To build this out of sheet metal, heavy gauge sheet metal, is very difficult to pick it up, to move it into shape, to hammer it into shape. The skill is challenging enough, but the physical effort and the tools, you know, working these tools and having this in your hands all day and kind of moving this metal through space and shaping it and the contours into a way where they, you know, can capture the image is very difficult. The inside and out of this is how actually the Statue of Liberty was made. It's what you call hammer repoussé. Matter of fact, my hammers are French. They're probably 1860 vintage. Welding it and holding the metal into place and reshaping it, just physically you're grappling with this weight. That was pretty tough. The adrenaline drove me through the physical challenge. I see things and I gravitate towards them, and then I shape them or I paint them. It's almost as though when I'm working on this head, I feel as though I'm embracing Robert Mondavi. I think that's where the synergy of this whole thing works. And that Margaret can relate to this form in a personal way is very important, because she has an intimate relationship with Robert, and that she can bond with this form with that intimacy, for me, is most important, because she's the closest person to him. Margaret's attraction to this form in that way, what it does for me is it acknowledges that I made the right decisions. I see the piece as a sculpture in the image of Robert Mondavi.
When we drove in and I saw first the Buffano statue in the center, and then the bear appeared, and then the Urso Mondavi head, all in front of this beautiful mission-style structure. To me, it just is a striking expression of Robert and everything he stood for. It truly is iconic.
Sort of saying, this is Robert Mondavi.